What the hell is going on? There we go. Mic check.
1, 2.
Grid 1 is gay. Okay, it works.
Got him.
What?
I was just mic checking.
You were. Which mic were you checking?
Well, I suppose both
mic.
Varrs.
Big Mike. Big Mike Obama. You checking Big Mike?
Dirty Mike
I
and the
wouldn't-
boys.
That's been checked. I think I'll trust other people.
Tyler, you're muted, by the way, if you're talking. Yeah, no sound. Hey, we got you. There you go. Thanks for the sub, by the way. Appreciate that. Hey, someone with as long hair as me. Look, there we go.
Hello, hello.
How you doing that? You doing
There
right?
we go. Got it.
Hey, is there a way to just mute all the little bloop, bloop,
Thanks for
bloop,
the sub, by the way.
bloop
Appreciate
messages in Discord?
Yeah, put it on streaming mode. As long hair as me. Look, there we go.
Hello, hello.
I had to turn all that off. How you doing that? You doing
There
right?
we go. Got it. Got it. Oh.
Hey, is there a way to just mute all? Is there a way to just mute all the little bloop?
Thank you. We're about to start here in like 2 minutes. We're just getting text stuff. 1 second.
Okay. There we go. I got my chat up now. We gooch. I was over here making dingers and zingers and shit. And nobody got to hear my greatness because my mic was fucking muted.
Pobrecito.
I was talking shit about your chat. There's a little boy in there named Testy. Got smacked around. Got exposed
Here
as
we
someone
go.
making shit up. And then after I dragged my nutsack across his bitch face, I bailed on out of there to play some Red Sack, and he's probably still seething mad. But that's why you're a viewer and I'm a speaker. Sit back and listen, bitch.
Unfortunately, Tyler, nobody heard that rant because I just now turned on the sound. But we're the only ones who heard that.
I'm not saying it a third time.
ready-
It's so manufactured now.
I'm sure you can type it out in chat, the transcript of it, or take a clip from your channel.
No, that kid in your chat got all the time he deserves from Papa. That's all. I educated him, and now I'm moving on.
Fantastic. All right, well, it's back to the regular schedule. I'm glad to be back. I had to take a little time off from traveling, and it was good. We had the DebateCon, we did the TwitchCon, we did the Phoenix, the rest of the thing. I'm tired, but now we're back. Thanks, Grid. Big shout out to Grid for having me host this DebateCon event. Want a big shout out to Grid for that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was rad.
I've enjoyed it a lot. Thanks for doing that. But, all right, moving on. We're going to be talking about today on Give Me a Break, the Venezuela invasion. If it's the Don Roe doctrine. We kind of talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago, but there's been some significant developments since then. So let's dive into it. I'll start with you, Power Destiny. It's your first time here. Tell us what you think, who you are, and the opening thoughts.
Thank you. My name's
Help's
Taylor.
got a
My
job
channel's
here.
Powder Dusty.
I'll lay down the smecca down.
I was hoping to go last. I'm coming into this a little bit cold. I mean,
I'm sorry.
I think, yeah. What do I think? I think that we need to stop blowing up boats. I think that we need to stop the war on drugs because I think it's an excuse for us to. It's an excuse for whatever they're really trying to do. I don't believe that it's actually an attempt to fight drugs. But that's for Tyler. No, but that's really all I got so far. We'll see when we get into it.
All right, Mr. Non-Smoker.
Hey, twitch.tv/non_smoker. So yeah, I mean, I'm just curious to see how anybody would advocate for us to like intervene in Venezuela. Like the only way it could make sense is if, you know, like once again, the American politics, this is like a purely partisan thing. The only way you could defend this is if you would defend Trump doing anything, you know, and I just don't see anyone making a compelling case for why we can do this without treading into ridiculous propaganda territories. So I'm kind of interested to see what other people have to say because I don't know, I know where anybody with common sense stands on the issue already.
All right, thank you so much. Grid.
Oh, me? Cool, got it. All right, so I'm Grid One Motorsports. I am an unreasonable man in most places. Otherwise, you can find me. I'm pretty.
I gotta look at both.
Yeah.
Judy.
So I mean, I really like this speech. I will give you the reasoning. Historical precedent says that we can blow boats out of the water. We did it back in the 1920s with the rum runners. We've done it many other times throughout history. It's what we do. We don't want it coming in the country. If you keep sending shit in the country, we're going to blow your boats out of the water. It's the way it is. So we have historical precedents. There is some discussion about whether or not it's legal. We'll get into that here shortly. I'm sure. I personally think we're in kind of a gray area. I would like it to be a lot more clear, but as of right now, we have historical precedents to blow boats out of the water, and let's blow some boats out of the water. It's an easy thing for Venezuela to fix. Don't send fucking boats full of drugs over, and we won't blow them up. It's a real simple thing. Super easy. Simple, easy to remember. That's me. Anyway, gotcha.
All right, thank you so much. All right, Mr. Dylan Burns. Also, guys, if you don't know, Dylan Burns, we just reviewed his newest documentary on Tuesday, and I really enjoyed it, by the way. It's got a lot of good on-the-ground footage and, kind of shows the civilian life and then, the action with the soldiers, and it's real good. I really enjoyed it, Dylan. You do good work. I hope you keep it up. But, yeah, what are your opening thoughts here? And I'm going to post the link in chat, guys, so check it out. But go ahead.
Thank you, my fellow long-haired brother. I do appreciate that. My opening thoughts. So, I don't think this has much to do with drugs. I do think that Trump doesn't like drugs. I think most people don't like the importation of drugs. But Venezuela is not a drug-producing hotspot. It is a spot where, drugs are smuggled above the northern coastline of Venezuela to a lot of Caribbean islands, and there are a lot of other points from those Caribbean islands from there. Then they can enter the United States and the southern United States. Miami, that area and such. But to make this about drug enforcement, I think kind of obfuscates from the bigger task I think Trump has at hand, which is trying to remove Nicolas Maduro from power. Marco Rubio, who is his national security advisor and his secretary of state, which has not been done since Henry Kissinger, is a long-standing cheerleader for the Behead Maduro fan club in Washington, D.C. He has been an advocate against it for the longest time possible, and the majority of the Republican Party, irrespective of any recent, anti-interventionist bona fides that some might claim to, they are interventionists when it comes to Latin America, particularly socialist Latin American countries in American history. And it's not different today. It's still the case. And so I think this mainly has to do with removing Maduro from power. And the conversations that Donald Trump is having with Maduro, as has been recently reported by the press, seem to be around that. And so I think the question, we can have conversations about drug enforcement. We can have a conversation about bringing stuff into the country. But I think the bigger conversation is probably whether or not the United States has a right to remove Nicolas Maduro from power, and whether or not it's in America's interest to remove Nicolas Maduro from power. Because that seems to be the main focus of the operation. You don't need 15,000 soldiers to do this drug enforcement operation. You don't need the General Ford. You don't need the largest aircraft carrier in America's arsenal to do that. There's an other pressure-based diplomatic effort going on here, and I hope we can talk about that.
All right, yeah, I hope we can get into it. Mr. Cassell.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me. Gibbs, my name is Cassell. You can find me on Castle Guard YT on Twitter and YouTube. I kind of lean center left in most things with nuance, and I think this is a topic with a lot of nuance to it. I'm all for American exceptionalism and American might and that show of force to make sure that we can spread our Western values across the world. But I also think at the same time you have to do it the right way. And for example, in Ukraine, I would love for us to help Ukraine more. And in Venezuela, I think that we're overstepping ourselves a little bit. And so in this case, I understand the need and the kind of context behind why we want to take Maduro out and why he's bad for Venezuela. But at the same time, if you look at what that would accomplish and what we've done in the past with taking leadership out of countries and the power vacuum and problems it creates thereafter once we leave, that's another problem you have to think of outside of just taking out a leader of a country like Venezuela. So, you know, when you compare it to a country like Ukraine that's being attacked, I think helping them is good. When we start attacking these boats to try to kind of show force and to show Maduro who's in charge, I don't know if that's helping the Venezuelan people. I don't know if the Venezuelan people have improved their lives since we've started doing this. And so I think, like Dylan was saying, I think we should take a more diplomatic approach at first. I think Marco Rubio mentioned this as well, is that there is a way to talk through this before we start trying to invade or bomb them on land, which I think, you know, at this point we're getting closer and closer to war, which I think was one of Trump's main things he was running on not to do. So I think the further we can stay away from an actual war, especially land war with Venezuela, the better. And I think we should look at this from a diplomatic lens as far as we can go before we take any military action.
All right, thank you so much, Anna. Last but not least, Tyler.
All right, listen, I never get to go last because I have an A name, so I get to sound like a genius here because I've heard all your thoughts and I get to, like, rebut them. So, interventionism is based and globalism is the future. That's going to be where we start today. This is just another one of Russia and China's allies, sanction and tariff-dodging trade partners that we have isolated off of the world stage. Just like Syria, just like Iran, just like Iran's 6 proxies, this is now another card being removed from the table that is allies with our actual geopolitical rivals, Russia and really China. Russia, who didn't even send troops to help out Syria, their proxy, is now sending troops to Venezuela. And what are our consequences for this? We hit Iran. We attacked them. We dropped bombs on them, the United States, and it's been 5 months, and they haven't done anything back while their nuclear facilities still sit in rubble. Non-smoker, 5 months. So we were... We've done a few panels before.
We'll push you off the wagon.
Yeah, so we know Venezuela has people that are tied in with the cartel in their government. We know the cartel of the sun mostly is their government, and they're working with Trindagua. They have high up members of the government, high up members in the police, high up members in the military, all working with cartels. This nation we know is jailing its political rivals for crime or for no crimes with no trials. They're killing the political opposition, killing protesters in the street in ways that if Donald Trump did it, I'd actually be on the side of the leftists against ICE. Actually rigging elections to the point where now Maduro's been elected twice and there's no opposition that has a fair chance because of what he's doing in the country. This is just one more step toward U.S. winning the Cold War, the strategic battle of world dominance. U.S. hegemony has brought us the living standards we enjoy today and the most peaceful world we've ever had. We need to support it and back it. Diplomacy and sanctioning have been going on since Chavez, before Maduro even took office. We've sanctioned them. We've tried to make deals with them. We've tried to do all sorts of shit with them. They finally, after being sued in court 20 years later, paid some of the settlement money for all of the oil companies they just held at gunpoint and forced out that were all U.S. owned. That just happened a few years ago after decades. The war on drugs as well. Imagine if we looked at other wars like this. Well, the war on drugs hasn't been successful. Neither have laws against murder. So, well, they haven't stopped murder, so let's just make murder legal. That's just the reverse nirvana fallacy, and I expect a puddle drooling in the lap of a person that thinks like that. So come at me, entire panel. I think I insulted all of you.
Not me.
Oh, now you agreed. You're
all right.
You didn't insult me, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So I got
All right.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So this is the amount of copium in this room right now is awesome. First of all, literally the entire country is drug smugglers. Who said they weren't drug smugglers? Or who said they weren't in the business of making drugs? They literally have entire villages that are enslaved to grow and process.
It's decentralized
of drugs.
Sort of like all the weapons.
Drug
of mass
networks in
destruction,
Venezuela are
right?
decentralized.
cool. They're
Oh my God,
libertarians.
they're decentralized. Who cares? They're fucking cartels.
It matters
Well,
when that's your reason
narco-terrorists.
for going in to
Literally-
decapitate the regime. It means it won't stop the drug dealing.
Well, I like.
Hold on.
I want
You know
to.
that we have right now. Do you know that right now, since 2020, we've had actually, wait, am I wrong on that? Yeah, 2020. We've had a $15 million bounty on Maduro's head. He won't leave his country because if he does, he's dead. Somebody's going to collect the $15 million. Oh, wait, there's more. It was increased in 2025 to $25 million under the Biden administration. The bounty was raised to $25 million. And then once Trump was in office, it was increased to, in July or August, just a month or so ago, it was increased to $50 million for that dude's head. $50 million. The United States government wants Maduro so badly, they will pay you $50 million to go bring me Maduro's head. You get $50 million bucks.
Well,
Not working.
I don't understand what
wanna-
you're trying to say.
I want to
that's
like
a
touch
good-
on something though.
Because,
Like, I think
because
Dusty,
you're claiming that they're not narco-terrorists, and we
Dude,
obviously
Trump
are
just
hold on.
pardoned a fucking
competitive.
drug lord. Juan
Let me-
Orlando
let me-
Hernandez.
drug lord.
Just
So we
pardoned
let me
him.
just
Just pardoned
let me
him.
just
That's kind of off
let me
topic.
just like
I
hold on. I
did
want to
wanna-
How
reframe
is
this
it
a little
off
bit.
topic?
Hold on.
Gibbs is
Let me
trying.
reframe this real quick. Yeah. Let me just get into this real quick. I want to touch on two things here. First, I think Dusty said something earlier. He's talking about how the war on drugs hasn't worked, right? And like right now, you know what price hasn't changed in the last 40 years? Cocaine prices, the same prices they've been since the 80s. And guess what? It's the highest purity it's ever been, right? So if that tells me the war on drugs has failed miserably, right? Whenever the only thing that's hadn't had to deal with inflation is cocaine prices, and the purity's gone up. So okay, clearly it's failed. So I definitely think it's more along the lines of there's some other agenda, which is remove Maduro, right? And I guess to my people like Dylan and Cassell, who are like pretty pro-Ukraine, I'm a pro-Ukraine Republican. I would think that this is exactly what Tyler said. Where it's like, hey, we're taking out another domino that's tangentially related to Russia, and that's going to isolate it. And an aggressive response here means we'll probably more likely have an aggressive response against Russia in the long term. Do you two not see it that way?
The way I see it compared to Ukraine is this: the Ukrainians themselves are being attacked and they're being maimed and killed, and I just think that when you start to look at
Well, this is like a
another
Russian
country-
ally, so we would be taking out an ally of Russia, which hurts Russia, so which would help Ukraine.
A
That's
trade
kind of the
partner
argument.
too, yeah.
Sure, but we're not even really helping Ukraine anymore. At least this administration isn't doing enough to help Ukraine. So I don't even know if we would be helping Ukraine if we had Russia go into sending more resources to Venezuela. At this point, we're making a deal, or at least this administration is looking to make a deal with Russia for Ukraine to give up a lot of their land. So I don't know if that's gonna help Ukraine at all.
news!
I think right now that the more that we spend money and time in Venezuela, it's not going to help as much as we think. Like, think about the outcome right now, that if we went in and we took out Maduro, we know that there are always ulterior motives with the United States and why they look to take out leaders. And it's no coincidence that Venezuela holds a ton of oil underneath their land there. So I think this is more of the administration looking to extract resources from Venezuela than actually caring about whatever drug smuggling. I mean, think about the boats that were blowing up. They're not coming to the United States. We know they're not going to, you know, Florida or Texas or wherever. They're going to other countries where then you can make the assumption that from those places they would send drugs to the U.S., but they're not even
What other
within our
countries are they going
waters.
to?
So why do we have the responsibility to take them out if they're
What
not if
other
they're in international
countries are they going
waters? I don't know, Antigua, Barbados, Cuba, wherever it is, but they can't even reach the United States, so they're not even coming to our shores. So how would you say that we have the responsibility
Cuba's
to bomb
further
them?
from Venezuela, I think, than
Is that your position, Dylan?
How
Do you think that too? Like, kind of, do you echo what Cassell's saying?
Well, there's a few things I wanted to respond to quickly. At the start, I was the one who said, like, I don't think this has anything to do with drugs. I don't think Venezuela is like a major drug producer. My point wasn't to say that Venezuela doesn't produce drugs, and my point was not to say that, and this is, I think, more important, Venezuela isn't a major passageway. You could say like a conveyor belt for drugs to make its way to the Caribbean, and then from there go to other markets, be it the United States, be it in the Caribbean itself, be it elsewhere. What I will say is that I don't think Venezuela, in comparison to Colombia, in comparison to the man that Donald Trump just pardoned, in comparison to any other number of like South American leaders or governments, is particularly egregiously engaged in the crime of drug smuggling. And I especially don't think that a quick strike plan is going to eliminate that drug production. Because as Non-Smoker said earlier, drug production in the country is heavily decentralized. You take out the leadership, what you're going to do is you're going to allow the decentralized drug market to be able to come up to whatever the new leadership is going to be it capitalist, be it socialist, be it just a random thug. They're going to come to them and say, we'll make a deal with you. And that same deal, I think, will continue. So the goal would hopefully be from the United States is that you replace Maduro with somebody who will crusade in a war against drugs. But that requires a lot more than just blowing something up. That requires us taking the investment to actually go in there and make sure stuff stays stable, that there's elections, that things go the way that we want them to go. Like, there's so much that you have to invest in past that point than the idea of just like a few bombing runs, which is being floated around right now. Even if you diplomatically negotiate Maduro out of there.
I mean, that's a domestic. I was
No,
gonna say their drug production is a domestic issue. Anyways, it's not our issue. I don't see why we would be blowing up random boats and saying, "Oh, we think that they're drug boats," when we were spent decades guarding poppy fields in the Middle East.
And as to
Because they don't
answer
care about
Gibbs's
drugs.
question, I'm sorry, I don't want to take the stage too much, but Gibbs asked me a question on the it was on Ukraine and whether this like knocks over another domino.
Yeah.
Look, it would be. There is a truth to the idea that if the United States is not giving Ukraine the physical tools to apply pressure on the battlefield, how much does tipping over another domino really do for Ukraine? Well, there is still some room for assistance. Number one, as has been brought up before, Venezuela has a lot of oil. Venezuela has a lot of energy. And if you are able to open that up to markets that previously it was not open up to, that were previously dependent upon Russian fuel and Russian energy, then you can make energy cheaper for those countries. You can make it so that they have more providers, and you can make it so that their energy markets are more flexible and are more strong in the aftermath of cutting off Russian fuel. You also get rid of a Russian ally in South America, further isolating Cuba if that is of the interest of other people. But I think like most directly tied to Ukraine, it would probably be the fuel. It would probably be that being opened up. But that's going to take years of investment and reform. And it's, I mean, like the Venezuelan energy system is like, it used to be a kind of a wonder of South America. It's what helped fund all of their social programs. Now it's garbage. It's derelict. It's not doing fantastic. And so it's not like we go to Venezuela and we turn off the socialism switch and then the fuel explodes and then we all have access to that. It's going to take years. And so even though it could help Europe right now, it's probably going to help Europe even if Maduro collapsed 3, 4, or 5 years down the line.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's very capital intensive to try to modernize Venezuela's oil production. So, like, the assumption that, okay, well, we decapitate the regime, and, like, let's just make all the assumptions, right? Like, anyone loyal to Maduro is immediately either, I don't know, like extradited or killed or whatever, jailed. They're all done away with. There's a lot of problems within Venezuela domestically that need to be resolved, which is going to involve like a prolonged, investment of time, money, resources, troops, etc. from the United States. I mean, you can make the very obvious argument that all of those resources could be best utilized elsewhere. But there's also something to the idea that, like, maybe you wouldn't get a maximal return on investment, even doing all of that stuff in the best case scenario. Because as Dylan said, in the time it would take to modernize Venezuela's oil production, I think the benefits, again, would be years and years down the line. So, look, I actually kind of want to shift this a little bit and try to point out that I think this is more of an economic war against China. China is the primary importer of Venezuela's oil. So if the idea is, well, we want to, destroy Venezuela's ability to export oil, and then whatever happens to the Venezuelan oil for the time being, who knows, who cares, let them rebuild it under some sort of like happy, I don't know, think tanky regime that we like, and maybe they'll figure it out years down the line, but we just want to cut off their oil supply to our adversaries. It's really going to hurt China, not as much as it's going to hurt Russia, who is a minor importer of Venezuelan oil. I also think another wrinkle to this that a lot of people don't talk about is the rare earths.
I would agree with the analysis that as far as trying to hurt Ukraine, I don't think that, or hurt Russia in the Ukraine war, I think it does very minimal to nothing for that to happen. I don't think Russia gets basically any oil. We actually still get oil from Venezuela through Chevron. Chevron has an agreement with Venezuela, and we still buy. I don't know how much. I could grok it up really quick, but I'm sure you can too. As much as we just don't get as much as we were. I don't know how much the equipment issues are right now in Venezuela. Obviously, it's been 20 odd years, that it's been, kind of jacked up. And of course, obviously, there's a serious issue with, knowledgeable people to run it. I don't know that they even have any, honestly, but, it's a good pivot, but I don't know that it doesn't hurt us because we can still buy oil from through Chevron. We're not paying any more for it than we would anywhere else. And the Chinese do get the bulk of Venezuela's exports of oil.
Well,
so hold on.
Let me ask, hold on. I'm going to ask you, Tyler, but like last one, we just was touching on something there at the end, which is the rare earth minerals, and I think that, and he brought up China, and I wanted to address that. I think this is maybe won't directly affect like Russia tomorrow if we took out Venezuela. I think Dylan kind of went pretty in depth on why it's going to be a long-term investment it would be in that case. But I think that it is like a taking out of a member of this like alliance that's kind of like a raid against the U.S. Right? That's kind of like with what you call it BRICS or whatever y'all want to call it, the new axis of evil. It seems like they're like aligned or tangentially aligned, and it seems it's like a step in that, whether it's China or whether it's Russia, they're both in cahoots. It seems like eliminating, and the rare earth minerals I think are becoming, I don't think are talked about enough. I think that non-smoker, I don't know if that's for sure where you were going with that, but I think that's a big factor. But I'll let. Do you have anything else you wanted to add on that? Then I'm going to go to Tyler.
I mean, just to finish quickly, that was, I thought, part of the calculus initially was like, okay, well, again, decapitate Maduro, right, and then just reap the rewards. Take all of the natural resources you can. I mean, that's what a lot of you guys always advocate for with the pro-interventionism. And it's kind of I'm referencing to prior debates, but at least in the case of Venezuela, a lot of the rare earths are controlled by, I don't know if it's right to say ironically or not, but also criminal gangs. Most of the rare earths are mined not by the regime, but like these rogue groups who mine illegally. They have no regard for the environment, and they end up kind of through these sort of clandestine networks shipping the rare earths onto the world market, where they sort of cycle all over the place. And I only bring that up to say that the notion that crushing Maduro would mean just getting all of Venezuela's riches, including the rare earths. It's really not that simple. The rare earths production is not even controlled by Maduro. It's controlled by all these renegade little groups. And, you know, any removal, like, it's very similar in this way to Syria. Any remover of, like, a dictator or a dictatorial figure inevitably leads to this struggle of factions, each with their own interest. And it's then our duty, in a way, to clean that up if we intend to reap any sort of material rewards from this, which I think that the people who are planning all of
do you
this
think
are
that's
aware
the
of.
goal? Because this seems like a pivot.
No, I
It
don't.
seems like a pivot. Do you think it's the United States' goal to clean up
I don't.
Venezuela because we somehow think we're
No.
going to get something out of it? Or do you think that it's just as simple as we're tired of 100,000, 200,000 deaths a year from fentanyl that comes?
It's not about
directly
fentanyl either.
from fucking
It's not about
It's
Venezuela?
not about
Do you think
fentanyl either,
that's maybe more
because
important?
it's not gonna make a significant dent, first of all, in fentanyl at all. I mean, Venezuela primarily is a drug route for cocaine, but in addition to that, there's massive,
Not
drug dealing
according to it.
networks
Not according to
all
this
over
thing.
Latin America, which are again decentralized networks. So removing this regime is not going to stop any of that.
It's not,
I
but
mean,
hold on. See, again, you keep saying that we're removing the regime. We're blowing up literal boats filled with drugs.
I think
That
the
means there
goal
are
is
less
obviously
drugs
regime
making it through.
change.
So
Yeah,
if that
blowing
is the
up a few
case,
random
what
people
does
in
that
boats
factor-
is
if
not
we
making a
wanted-
significant
look, if
dent in
we
the
wanted
global
Maduro
drug trade,
gone,
dude.
if we wanted Maduro gone, we could literally do it in 7 hours.
Are you
it
sure?
would, I mean, we are the
I
United
don't
States of
think
America.
so. We tried it in 2020. We tried it in 2020. I don't
what's
know
the
if you're
bounty
aware
on
of
this
that.
head?
just to like give credence to something that's unrelated, but I think related at the same time. Maybe I don't know how to rephrase this. My brain's working slow today. But it is Rwanda deal happened today, right? And that is basically because of the rare earth minerals, right? Like, you know, that's why he wanted to do it. That's why he backed it. And he basically he took it against the Rwanda side against the Congo, basically, who's a Russian ally. And Rwanda's taking over France's contracts in whatever. And so I almost see kind of what Tyler is bringing up, and I think it's a point to it's what Non-Smoker brought up with the rare minerals, where it's like it could be a political realignment thing of taking out things. Do you not see that, Jared? Are you sure? It's like why are you
if we were
the
going
drugs
after
over
him
the
to take him out, I would 100%. If we were landing troops and rolling up the shores with tanks, or we were sending in SEAL team whatever and blowing his head off in the middle of the night, if any of those things were happen, I would lend credence to what you're saying. But we're not doing that. We're simply blowing boats out of the water.
Yeah, but it's being done in conjunction with the argument that Maduro is a narco lord, and it's like a drug regime, and you have to understand the implication in all of this, and the reason that I would imagine we're even having this debate is because the U.S. is posturing as if there's going to be further military action that goes beyond just strikes on vessels.
Let's go to Tyler. He's gonna try to get it. Go ahead, Tyler.
Okay, so
then Dylan. Yeah.
I get Dylan brought this to his oil point theory that he's trying to make, but the original point that I was making prior to that about this hurting Russia and helping Ukraine was the trade route argument. It was that they have alternative trade routes that can dodge our sanctions, dodge our tariffs, and things like that. They're trading with each other. Since the war has started between Russia and Ukraine, trade has almost doubled between Russia and Venezuela. And then on top of that, like, so we take them out of the equation, we take Maduro out, that's could potentially a shit ton less trade going on. That just, it's not going to take all of it away, but each incremental step. And you go to Iran. When Iran and Israel were fighting in that 12-day war, Israel took out almost half of its long-range launchers. They hit drone facilities, drone part facilities, weapons facilities, rocket facilities. They took out a ton of military production that goes on in Iran. And that, even if they didn't take it all out, that hurts what Iran can then turn around and sell to Russia or give to Hamas. So hitting these pipelines and taking them out is effective in all sorts of ways that hurt them in the now. And the weapons, again, is something that probably... So, again, Venezuela...
And that's a much better argument.
Yeah. Well, I that's what I'm here for, is to make the absolute best arguments and be right 100% of the time. So thank you, Grid, for noticing.
So does anybody think that we're actually doing this?
You got a 1 in 10
over
ratio
drugs?
going. You got a 1 in 10 ratio going.
Yeah,
Does
I'm gonna
anybody
go. I'm
actually
gonna
think
go
we're
Dusty.
doing?
I'm gonna go to Dusty, and then we're gonna do it.
Jordan, yeah, hold on. I got it.
Dylan got skipped again.
Hold on, Dusty. I got a couple
Yeah,
more
I just.
things.
Look,
I was
All right,
waiting
go
for
ahead.
like
I'll give it
10
back to
minutes there.
Tyler.
Yeah, let me get a couple more things in. So we were talking about Venezuela doesn't actually produce a lion's share of the drugs, a vast majority. What they do is offer safe haven to the people that are shipping
They're
the
trading.
drugs.
They're a trade route.
They're Qatar for Hamas in this situation. They're offering
Yeah.
safe haven for the people that are actually doing the bad things and the leaders. So if we take out the smugglers, we're setting up deterrence. Of course, we're not going to make a dent in the global drug trade by killing a boat or two full of smugglers. It's to set up deterrence. It's establishing deterrence to tell them we're not fucking around. If we catch you, you're dying from that shit. It's already been passed in
didn't
multiple
catch them.
states.
Dude, there's shitloads of
We
drugs
didn't
still
catch them.
coming into America, though.
Okay, well,
We didn't catch We did not catch drugs coming into our country. We shot a boat out of the water and
Yeah.
then said there are drugs on it. We just blew it.
And we don't even really know if those are drug dealers, by the way.
I
We don't
trust
talk about
our
that.
intel agencies.
You do.
Yeah,
I do.
mean, that's a weak argument.
do?
That's fine. But
17
I really don't
intel
care what
agencies said that Russia hacked our
Yeah,
election.
All right, let's go to Dylan. Go
Those
ahead.
that said we had weapons of mass destruction, right?
All right, we're gonna
They
go
did.
to Dusty. Go ahead.
They
Dylan.
did.
Dylan, go ahead.
The Russians did interfere in our elections, but that's besides the point. There's a few.
wait.
Yeah.
Did we get that? Is that recorded? He just said that. Did we record that? Because
It's proven in Congress already. The Senate's got it recorded.
Oh my
All
god.
right, go ahead. Let me go. Go ahead. Dylan.
Wait, are people? Was that recorded? Are we streaming? I was told this was a private conversation.
Bamboozled, bro.
got him on
So,
record as
first-
saying that there's election interference.
So,
Okay.
as for the Congo and Rwanda, I just first want to throw out there, that's a war that Trump said he already solved. So I don't know why we're negotiating anything when it comes to Rwanda and the Congo. He said that war was already over, that he negotiated a peace deal, and that's fine. So I don't know why he would need a mineral deal to fix anything. As for the Venezuelans and supporting Ukraine, they produced like 740,000 barrels. That's still quite a lot. That's still something that can have an impact. But in comparison to what reserves they have under their feet, that is the necessarily global earth-shattering, like market-changing potential of having the largest reserves on the planet. It's just they've never been able to meet that because their economy isn't very well managed, to be very blunt. As for the drug smuggling here, Venezuela is cocaine smuggling, but the majority of this cocaine is being smuggled to Europe, is going to the islands and then smuggles to Europe. And so, again, I'm not saying that it's bad to stop drug smuggling. I'm not saying that, I'm against any type of enforcement. But the idea that after decades and decades of the war on drugs, us blowing up ships that are probably going to Europe, not coming to the United States, which so far have yet to really know of what impact that's had when it comes to, actually helping the American citizens, helping American people who are at the other end of the needle here, at the other end of the actual drug consumption. So what are we doing here? What are we actually accomplishing by blowing up these boats? Especially since this is probably being done extra legally, which I would like to get into that conversation at some point, that it's one thing to say, hey, Congress, we're going to all come together and we're going to agree. We're just going to start blowing boats out of the water. It's not like this is something that's been done by a previous president before. This is something that Trump, as the executive, chose on his own that we were going to start doing, and Pete Hegseth has carried it out and has blown up 21 ships. And as we've talked about before, and this is the one disagreement I'm going to throw out with Tyler, that he trusts that these are drug smugglers. Rand Paul, who's not somebody I cite very often, but Rand Paul released the report recently from the Coast Guard saying that over the last year, 79% of the boats intercepted were found to be engaging in illegal, illicit drug smuggling activity. Meaning that 20% of the boats that were intercepted in that time period were not engaged in illegal drug smuggling activity. We've blown up 21 boats. What's 20% of 21? I'm not saying that we know that to be the case. I'm just saying that when we have an administration that's being so untransparent about how this is happening, about who's on the ships, providing names, providing physical evidence, where they decide to do it in one instance or in another instance, but then not to do it for the vast majority of the other instances that have not been approved by Congress, it leads to distrust. And it needs to have, there's a question about whether this should be happening in the first place, but the fact that he feels so free to do this shows how much the JCPOA and other use of force for military authorization has degraded Congress's ability to just take their hand, put it on the President of the United States, and say, that's not your job. That's our job. We're going to start bombing shit. We get a say.
I would love to argue the legality of it with you, but unfortunately it's all classified. The OLC opinion backing this is classified. All we have are hearsay from Democrats and Republicans saying what's in it, and then what it cites are other OLC opinions about Syria and Libya that we don't also have access to, unfortunately, so we don't know the legality behind it. It's hard to dispute it.
But,
I was just on our side and
the
doing it.
JCPOA authorizations we're going off of are post 9/11 JCPOA authorizations. That's going to be the final legal underpinning for this. It's going to be the idea that Nicolas Maduro is running an organization similar in nature to Al Qaeda. And that's why America, with imminence, without a declaration from Congress, has to move in and just start bombing shit. Now, whether or not you agree that we should just start blowing up these ships, that we should just start bombing Venezuela, that the president should engage in that type of behavior, the idea that these types of forces are at all equal distant from each other, even close to each other, when it comes to the motivations of what pushes a drug runner, what pushes Nicolas Maduro, and what pushes the Islamist organization Al Qaeda.
So that
I don't
disagree with.
Hold on, Grant. I want to like maybe reframe this real quick, and then I'll go to you and Destiny. I want to go to Destiny real quick because I have he's brought up several times he doesn't think this is about the drugs, right? And y'all have argued the legality aspect of this, and I think it's interesting. All right, I tend to agree with you, Destiny, that it's not about the drugs, right? However, would you equate a cartel to be an equivalent organization to a?
Sorry,
like
did you say Destiny a second? You said Destiny earlier.
You said Destiny.
Yeah, it was like, when did that come up?
Destiny.
Am I being referred to? Or
No,
who is
Dusty.
Okay,
Destiny, listen.
Not Destiny. Dusty. I think maybe my accent. I'm almost not done. So,
there's gonna be some memes there for sure.
Sure, yeah, they're gonna get me. It'll be like Mr. Beef stutters or some shit. It'll be fine.
That wouldn't have happened if they just allowed that cocaine to come through, right?
I'm saying, bro, the pure. Anyway, listen. Yeah. So do you equate it like cartel to like equivalent danger to a terrorist organization? Because I know you're saying this is not about drugs. What do you think?
No, not at all. I think that I'm pretty libertarian. I think the war on drugs should end entirely. I think that a cartel is, first of all, a different country's problem. It's not our problem at all. I equate it more to a free market business than anything. But the point is that a cartel is not, their purpose is not to attack Americans. In fact, if they're selling product to America, they want Americans to survive. Whereas like Al Qaeda, that is their purpose and their intent. So no, not at all.
Grid, you seem to take umbrage with that. Go ahead, Cassell. But yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask Grid a question because one of the arguments here is that selling drugs to the U.S. or running a drug cartel and designating them as a terrorist is the reason why we're doing this. But if you think about it, if that were the case, then why aren't we bombing the cartels in Mexico? I mean, Mexico is, some people would call it a narco state at this point. 90% of the fentanyl is coming through the.
These guys want to do that too. Not to cut you off. These guys want to do that too.
But then why are we attacking? But why are we attacking Venezuelan boats with like the people?
Dude, they just like attacking.
Like,
that's like the thing these days. The pro-intervention.
One more extension onto that. Why not also European mafios? I mean, the mafia is one of the biggest drug dealers in the world. If any of that is actually crossing the transatlantic, can we do bombing runs in Italy? Can we do bombing runs in Denmark? Where exactly
bomb my
does
block.
the limits of this go?
Just bomb Huntington Station. There's crack dealers all over the place.
Well, we could try
Grid,
30 years of diplomacy.
I'm gonna answer Tyler's earlier kind of pseudo question about how he couldn't. We can't really talk because their ROEs classified to some degree, and we only know some. So what the rumor is, and I believe this, is that since these boats fly no flags, they are not considered terrorists. They're actually and they're on the high seas. They are considered pirates. They are engaged in illegal activities on the high seas, and therefore that is the rumor of why we are able to go weapons free on those guys. I don't know. That seems like a reach to me, but that's the rumor. Again, you're right. It's classified. We don't actually know anything. It's just,
Can we just come on? Jesus fucking Christ. Really? Do we have to think about it this deeply? they're trying to do something that's big and flashy to look like they're making an impact, and they don't give a fuck. They don't actually give a fuck if these are really drug dealers. They care that the American people, everybody sees this on social media, and it's a big impact move. This is like classic Trump. It's not about stopping drug dealers. There's no way to even quantify it if it's had any impact on the amount of drugs coming into America. It's ridiculous to even assume that. And so the conversation shouldn't be like, is this really affecting the drug traffic? It's like, no, is this a signal that we're going to intervene in Venezuela and initiate a regime change? And it seems to be that some people believe that. I actually don't think that the Trump administration is even going to try that, by the way.
Yeah, I don't
because,
think so.
You know, I think that the potential for success of that's very low.
I think being bald makes you think you're now Charles Xavier.
You think hold on. The potential for success is very low.
I think killing Maduro is highly probable. I don't think it stops there. I think that there's a lot of like research done on this, guys, that there's layers within the Venezuelan government and security apparatus that are in place just in case Maduro would fall. And it's of my opinion that you guys remember back in I think it was mid-October, there was a report in the New York Times about how supposedly Maduro offered to give up everything. He would give up oil, he would give up this and that and the other, and just as long as America would not attack Venezuela. And yet nothing ever came of that, right? And you would think if the U.S. wants regime change, Maduro's willing to surrender, why wouldn't they just accept that deal? And my assumption on that is that probably was not based in any fact. They were probably floating that story out to the media, hoping that the generals would overthrow Maduro, concerned that there'd be a lack of loyalty there, something like that. We have been trying to, through various diplomatic pressures and sanctions and other means, to cripple this regime, and we've failed consistently.
Hold on.
There's a lot of loyalty for Maduro within the government, like it or not.
You can't.
It's very similar to Iran in that
literally
sense.
all cartel.
And actually strikes, let me just finish, strikes on these random boats leaving Venezuela, that's not going to decrease support for Maduro. It's actually going to embolden people who do support him. It'll make him look like this martyr type figure, and oh my God, I'm the only one defending you from these imperialist gringos. We're making Maduro stronger because the president is a fucking idiot. And the fact that you guys haven't figured that out yet is kind of scary.
First off, your whole first part there was like, I know Trump's true intent, like you're in the room with him, whereas in reality, the things you gave is mutual.
It's classified.
It's mutual different things. They all could be true at once. Yes, he could be wanting to stop drugs. Yes, he could also be wanting the regime change that Republicans and Democrats have been working toward for 20 years on the same team. Obama, Trump, George Bush fucking kidnapped Chavez. Well, that's what they say.
True.
So, yeah, this has been U.S. policy for decades. Of course, that could be part of it. Of course, showing it off in the media to get your poll numbers up could be part of it. It doesn't have to just be one of those things. It could be all of them, but you're saying, no, it's just this. I know Trump's mind, and it's just this one cynical thing that makes him look like an asshole.
Do you think it's about the drugs?
I think that absolutely plays into it. I think that's his motivating factor because he talks about fentanyl all the time, talks about the gang members all the
Do you
time.
think it's a major or
Crime.
minor factor? Wait.
Crime generally is a major
Do you think
factor.
it's a major or minor factor when picking Venezuela specifically? Because it didn't have to be Venezuela when it comes to fentanyl.
Well, I think that's a little bit more to it. One, there's history between them. Two,
He's
Venezuela.
not picking on Venezuela.
Well,
Why
they're-
Venezuela particularly?
literally
I can tell you
many-
why.
For me, I think it's regime change. But why Venezuela
Sure.
particularly?
That's
If
that's
not
low-hanging
just
fruit.
for the social media.
they
point.
refused to come to the table in terms of taking back their migrants earlier, like earlier in the Trump second term. He
wait,
tried to
but that's
negotiate
the
with
point,
them. They
though.
turned it
You're
down.
explicitly saying that
If-
it's a lot more than
Yeah.
the I think the drugs
but
is maybe
Dylan,
like 1 or
Dylan,
2% maximum, if anything.
I think
Like,
crime
it's
is a
such
big motivating factor.
minuscule factor in the grander scheme here when it comes to
Trump's
why they're
big
going
on
after the
crime.
government.
Crime is one of his main things he keeps harping on. I think that's a big.
Well, yeah,
factor.
that's what he says.
That's not our
Yeah,
crime.
I understand that's what
It's
he
not
says.
our
But
crime.
it's one thing to say that and then pardon presidents who smuggle drug into the United States, specifically cocaine, the drug that is being smuggled
That's
through Venezuela.
empirical versus anecdote. Yeah, he also pardoned the January 6ers. That doesn't mean his policy isn't focused on cutting down on national crime.
Well, no. What I'm saying is, I
This
can
is
see
not
him blowing
national
up any
crime.
ships
He's
because
been
he wants
tough
to
on
present
drugs
a good
everywhere.
face
They're
on
literally
drugs. I just don't see that being the main
making
motivator for going
huge
after Venezuela
seizures in
specifically.
Texas.
But he has so the point is that the reason why Trump is harsh on Venezuela and not Mexico is because he likes Claudia Sheinbaum and doesn't like Nicolas Maduro.
It's because they're not working with them. Like, it's the same thing.
But that's what I'm
Mexico's
saying.
at least
Maduro-
attempting to work with
Yeah,
us.
Mexico's
No, they're
working with them. Venezuela's not. Like, that's as simple as that.
I said a good thing. I didn't say they were succeeding.
They put
Why
troops
would
on the
Venezuela
border
have to work with us on their turf to solve our drug demand?
because the drugs are being brought in from a Venezuelan-hosted gang that is working with the government.
It is part of the
By
good.
the way, I'm sorry, Tyler.
Right,
Can
what
you explain
happens
to me
in
how my
Venezuela is
example
Venezuela's
of
problem.
Trump-
What happens in the U.S. is to bomb a boat outside of
one
in
second.
Venezuela and say that that's addressing our domestic drug problem is absurd. Like, the degrees of speculation required to have that make sense is crazy.
It's not. It's deterrence. It's pretty.
Tyler,
pretty
I
cut and dry.
do. I need to
It's
know
different from
Yeah.
why
somebody getting
is
on a
it
boat,
anecdotal?
maybe.
Why is it anecdotal for him to pardon a world leader that has been convicted of drug smuggling into the United States? Why is that anecdotal?
Because
Do
one,
you know the story behind that?
it's anecdotal. Because well, even if that's irrelevant,
You
even
can
if
look
the
it
guy
up,
was
like,
guilty.
If you look up right now on Google, Trump
It's not
drug
anecdotal.
smuggling.
Yeah,
pardon,
yeah.
you'll
There's
see that
more
he
to the story,
pardoned a
apparently.
South American
Right, but
leader
that-
in the last
the
48
guy that was
hours
convicted
for drug
in New
smuggling
York of
cocaine,
drug smuggling
the very
was a
same drug that
president
was
of his
smuggled into the
country.
United States by those Caribbean pirates that we were blowing up.
Right.
Yeah. I agree. Even if, let's assume he's guilty. I understand what Grid's about to say here in a second, but let's assume he's guilty. It's anecdotal because it's one person versus what his actual policy is across the board on drugs. That's the empirical. You're like he's absolutely been against crime. He's been cracking down on crime with illegal immigration, going after particularly the illegal people first. I mean, people that weren't in the country illegally, that have valid deportation orders. What, 2.3 million, I think he said at the beginning of his term. There's all sorts
It
of
is actually
I don't
really
argue that there's
consistent. You
specific
guys keep saying
subsects
that
of crime
Trump
that he's
isn't
particularly
consistent,
hard
but
on.
he's
My
absolutely
point is just
consistent.
I just don't think this is a principled stand on this issue. And if you were to make that stand, you wouldn't make it in Venezuela.
I mean, it might be emotional. It's probably more emotional with Trump.
Well,
He refused to work with him.
hold on. When
Let's go to
we are,
Greg.
we are literally having record drug seizures of drugs coming across the border from Mexico, and we still have a problem with Venezuela
Why not
blowing
Mexico?
boats out of the water. All of a sudden, starts making sense. Also, it is a very consistent view, as Tyler just said. Trump has very consistently been tough on crime. He wants to be seen as tough on crime. He is doing things that nobody
be
else
seen
has
as a-
bothered to do. Even when people say, "Yeah, why bother doing it?" He's doing it, and he's been very consistent. It's you guys keep trying to say, "Well, I don't understand why Trump is doing this." Well,
Grid,
well,
let
just
me
look
ask
at
you
the
a question.
totality of it. Look at the
let me-
totality.
Let me ask you a
Well,
question.
look,
right? And maybe I can.
I'm
I
not,
wanna-
I'm not a geopolitical expert on South America, but Venezuela and Mexico are two different countries. And if the majority of the drugs are coming across the border in Mexico, then wouldn't the strategy be to do something in Mexico, not Venezuela?
Yeah.
I mean, like again, it's like
No,
and
both.
before the election,
hold
when
on,
I was
just
seeing
both. He's doing both.
some Trump advisors talking
Not
about
either or.
how to
He's
make
doing
military
both.
interventions in Latin America,
Why
the
not
majority
both?
of those reports had to do with Mexico for that reason. Very few of them had to do with Venezuela.
Yeah, a
If
lot.
any.
Most of the politicians
Yeah,
that
well-
Trinidad has killed and replaced with loyalists have been in Mexico. Absolutely, and Mexico's working with them. So
Well, hold on. I do want to examine this a little bit, though, right? Like, so, like, I guess to Grid and other people saying that Mexico. Well, like, Mexico is about to violate a water treaty with the United States in addition to, like, all the drug stuff.
I'd read about that. I'm not up on it, but I'd read about it.
Yeah, I mean,
A
they
water
haven't, but
treaty.
they're about to, right? Because there's a drought everywhere. So, like, that's like a big deal coming up now, at least in my local region, right? And to me, it would make way more sense to be like, oh, let's go to war over a natural resource that they're not following up on a treaty. And, oh, if we're actually talking about the drug problem, Mexico first. But to me, it's got to be what Tyler is kind of proposing, where you're taking out this block in their global chain for this to make sense. Like, and like where it's
Alright.
the natural resources, the oil. That's really the only way this makes sense, with the drug stuff being like maybe I don't know, a scapegoat. Like, how do you not see that? Like, how do you disagree with that? Scapegoat? Like,
I'm sorry.
how do you disagree with that take? Like, how do you like justify if this everything of what you're saying is true, not going for Mexico when Mexico's about to break a treaty and all the drug stuff? How
Mexico
do you, like,
is currently working with us. They're currently working with the United States. They're providing us with information. I just saw a video the other day of them blowing up tunnels where the people are coming crossing the border through these tunnels. They blew it. It's really impressive with the way the ground sank down. It was awesome. So I think and look, can we just all? I think we can all agree that Trump is willing to play as long as you're playing ball with him. He's perfectly willing to play ball with you. But the minute that Mexico says, "Yeah, fuck you," or they violate the water treaty, or they give us bad information on purpose, and Trump's going to be like, "All right, that's it, deal's over. Fuck you guys. Now we're going to send troops across the border," which he's promised to do before, and he literally had troops at the border ready to go across. So, he's very consistent. I mean, you don't have to agree with it, but
So why not Colombia then? Why wouldn't we go after Colombia if it was the drugs then? Why wouldn't we make like Colombia, Peru to be like be the ones if it's not just globalist, like a global regime kind of like fight against these Axis powers over here? Like if it's not that, why wouldn't you go after Colombia with a higher production?
Honestly, wasn't on my study sheet tonight. Was whether or not to go into Colombia. I don't know what we're doing in Colombia right now as far as DEA enforcement or anything like that. But the assignment was Venezuela and blowing boats out of the water. So that's what I studied for.
We're working with Colombia.
When the fent problem got bad is when we handed Afghanistan back over to the Taliban and they shut down poppy production. Our drug problem is a direct product of the war on drugs.
That's true.
True.
I don't know, man. I do a lot of heroin when I was younger. Fentanyl has been around for a lot longer. Like it was back like when the U.S. started.
It wasn't prevalent. It wasn't prevalent because you could get other.
Bro, I was
heroin.
No. I was getting heroin at like 16. I'm 37. That was like 21 years ago.
Right. Fentanyl was not prevalent.
Yeah,
Heroin
that's when it
was.
started. When I came back to New York to visit, maybe like 12 years ago, 10 years ago, we got a bundle, and I sniffed a shack. You could tell immediately that shit was cut. It is not good. That's 12 years ago.
And if heroin addicts could just buy their heroin, they wouldn't be surprised by having it cut up with all sorts of weird shit that they didn't expect. Like I said, almost all of the drug problems, almost all the organized crime problems, all this shit is directly a product of prohibition.
A lot of talk in the last election about the affordability of housing. Not a lot about the affordability of heroin.
Right? No, I've reformed my ways.
There's also, I said this the last time we did the Mexico
Make
debate.
heroin great again.
There's always the debate. There's always the argument about I don't know, making like drug treatment more available to people, and helping drug addicts and doing things domestically to reduce the need.
Seems like it's pretty available to people.
I don't know. Maybe that would help a little bit. Instead of bombing random fucking speedboats, like leaving Venezuela. I don't know. Just a thought.
I mean,
Did we ever get
I think that the problem with the argument that Trump cares about drugs and how it's affected, after this pardon of the Ecuadorian guy, I don't know if you guys remember, Trump also pardoned like 5 other massive drug traffickers. I mean, I know the libertarians like him, but Ross Ulbricht was the founder of the Silk Road, who basically was able to run drugs and firearms across the globe. And he pardoned him.
Ross
Ulbricht
actually never did any of that. He simply provided a mechanism for it, and he was
right.
Same with Mark Zuckerberg. I bet Mark Zuckerberg in that sense has facilitated more drug sales than anybody else ever.
Yeah, let's go.
I hate that argument.
We've already Dusty and I had this. We had a debate on this. We were a team on the Ross.
I hate this argument though from you, Cassell, just because Biden gave clemency to a bunch of people that had drug sentences. Does that mean he's doesn't care about drug laws, doesn't care about people dying from
No
drugs?
American president cares about the drug crisis, guys.
I think they do. They don't put money into it.
I never argued Biden cared about it.
We invaded Panama. We invaded fucking Panama because Noriega is a drug lord, even though we knew he was a drug lord before that. And then Panama became a home base for the Cali cartel.
I don't have it prepped.
They don't give a fuck about drugs,
but
guys.
I can give
if they
you
did, they would do something about it domestically.
Obama, Trump, or Biden, and then Trump again. I can give you examples, not right now because I'd have to look them up, of all of them passing policy to help people in the United States that are on drugs in their own different ways.
Dude, I mean, listen, I know you have a history. So do I. I work in drug treatment. People are seeing their benefits being cut and shit like that. It's harder than ever it's harder than ever before, I would say, to get clean now. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the federal government, state governments also, they don't take it seriously. In fact, a lot of them have shifted over the treatment model to like not even preaching abstinence anymore. There's legal weed everywhere. It's like, I don't know. But yeah, I mean,
The
like
hospitals out here will hand out not just clean needles, but clean meth pipes. That's crazy.
yeah, which is fucking. I mean, I get the harm reduction thing. It does make sense from like a public health standpoint,
The
obviously.
needles
but
make sense. Needles
Yeah.
make sense. But
The
handing out
meth pipes, I don't know,
does
but-
not make any sense at all.
that just sounds like it's for a good time, maybe. But
Right. It's a party pack.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, dude, Iran-Contra and the crack epidemic, I mean, this is like standard stuff. Like, we've promoted drug use in America consistently. I don't know if it was always deliberate, really. You know, I don't know if I go that deep into it, but it's clear, like, a lot of our international policy and our interventions, especially in Central and Latin America, have proliferated drug use,
I wouldn't
and the government
qualify.
is totally fine with that.
Reagan
They
and-
consider it, you know, a
Let me
necessary
reframe
evil.
this a little bit. Let me go to Grid and Tyler here on this one. Here, so okay, y'all seem to be the most hawkish on this. What like level of action would you be okay with by Trump and the Trump administration against Venezuela? Are you talking full-on invasion,
With-
regime change? Like
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
what
I
do
With
you
don't think
congressional
they should.
approval or no?
I mean,
So-
both, either or. You can explain. Yeah, let's hear. What do you think?
I'll go first so Tyler can organize his thoughts because I'm very cut and dried on this. And I've thought about this because it's been a subject that we've been talking about quite a bit lately. While I'm, look,
Namaste.
if we blow speedboats out of water with narco guys running drugs and shit, fine, whatever. But we have a horrible track record when it comes to replacing governments. And all it ends up doing is causing us more trouble. I would much rather
I don't know what
us
a nasal
just
bridge is.
try and basically contain Venezuela enough until it just fails on its own and take away their revenue streams as much as we possibly, as far as drugs go, and getting help from the U.S. as much as possible. And either Maduro gets taken out and somebody collects $50 million for putting his head on a pike, which at some point one of the guys close to him is going to look at that and go, "I'd like to be boss, and not only can I be boss, but I can get a $50 million payday." And Maduro.
Why do you think it hasn't happened yet?
Yeah. Why do you think they wouldn't just kill the guy who brought the head and keep the 50?
Right.
Needs to be
right,
51 million. Looking for 51.
Yeah. But I just don't think that we should be installing governments anymore. I think we've proven we have a horrible track record at it. We don't need to do that anymore. I'm a non-interventionist for the most part. Look, if boats come towards us, fine, take care of that. But we don't need to go into somebody else's country looking to fix their fucking problems. I would much rather let them just fail on their own.
Sure, these
That's
people are
my
guilty of being on a boat.
What about you, Tyler?
are as
You've seen
guilty
it.
as they are. You have a boat, right?
I do have a boat.
That's what they're guilty of, is having a boat.
No, they're not. That's
Okay,
not what
Tyler,
they do.
what about you? How far would you want them to go?
I don't want any laws to be broken, but if congressional approval was
That's a hell of a
certified,
clarifying statement.
if congressional approval was given, I think I would be on board with as far as an Afghanistan-like takeover of Venezuela. Leaving Afghanistan was a mistake.
What? Tyler, you cut out on my end for just a second. What did you say?
An Afghanistan-like takeover of Venezuela, where we're there for about 60
That's
years.
what I thought
Yeah,
you
does
said.
that include the 20 years and
Could have
2
said
trillion? or-
Japan has so much better connotations, but you had to say Afghanistan.
Japan, I know, and South Korea
Venezuela
and
has
Germany.
great food.
I think
Great
leaving
food.
Afghanistan was a mistake.
Tyler,
That's
I
where
had such high hopes for you.
that's where I side with the neocons, man. Nation building is a pretty good thing. Why not make everywhere like America? Then we can go on vacation places again.
Inside every Venezuelan is an American waiting to come out.
Go ahead.
Venezuela looks like they need some democracy.
Yeah, inside them also is some dogs, so maybe that'll convince them.
So, look, I do want to throw a few things out there.
Man.
What percentage, and I know we're going back to drugs for a second here, what percentage of drugs coming into the United States is coming from Venezuela, right? Because if we were
very
making a
little.
decision to make this intervention based upon drugs, then doing this and investing all the manpower, investing all the money, we have 15,000 soldiers. We got 14 big ships, including the largest aircraft carrier, the Ford, in the entire U.S. arsenal, just floating off the coastline. Yes, that is a pressure cooker. Yes, that makes people around Maduro think of options. Yes, it makes Maduro have to keep everything on high alert, and it puts him in a difficult position. But it also costs a lot of money. And if after 2 years all we did
those
was
guys are getting paid anyway.
well, I mean, it costs money for the fuel.
It doesn't matter
to,
where
have
that
the ships
it
go
doesn't
over
matter where
there,
that
and
aircraft carrier is parked. We're paying.
it costs money to bomb things.
You don't think it costs more to
does
station it out there than it does to
Not
park
just
it?
a question about the cost of the personnel. It's also
I
a question
bet
of the
it does.
cost of the entire operation itself, and depending upon how long this runs,
Actually,
the
I
price
do
tag
have
on that
I have
will
a
go more into
non-smart
the
ass
millions
answer
of
for this.
Me too.
billions of dollars. And so when I think about the money invested, the time invested, the international reputational damage we're doing to ourselves, it just doesn't make sense based off of drug enforcement for us to be doing what we're doing right now. Now, based upon
I have a
America's
non-smart
national
ass
security interests, based upon something that's different from that is asking what would be best for America in this situation. If Maduro was to go, that's 740,000 billion barrels of oil, 740,000 barrels of oil that is more available towards a Western ilk than necessarily China. That is a country that does have rare earth that is controlled by gangs we might be willing to do business with in order to get access to those rare earth. Does that mean we should do business with those gangs? Not necessarily, but what's in our nation's best interests? Maybe it is in our nation's best interest.
Get him out of there.
I have a non-smart ass answer.
I could see Marco Rubio. I could see the people in immediately Trump's orbit just thinking, look, invading, putting troops on the ground, that's too costly. Standing back, adding on the pressure year after year, just seeing what happens while trying to avoid too big of a political risk, a bombing here, a bombing there, waiting for something to happen. That seems much more up Trump's alley as a historical fence sitter.
Okay, so I have a non-smart ass answer. First is I actually would rather the Gerald R. Ford be off the coast of the Americas, south and north, than parked off the coast of Afghanistan and near Russia and all of that right now, because I'm tired of fighting wars in the fucking desert. So yes, park that shit right the fuck off of the coast of Venezuela. I'm perfectly fine with that. It costs the same, and it's an easier flight home for our boys when they need to take liberty. So so that part of it I don't care about. I don't see that as a drain on our resources. We're gonna pay, those guys get paid no matter what, and we're not. It's not, I don't think it's costing us anything. As far as the munitions. As far as the munitions, we can even write that down as, I mean, we fly those flights, we send those bombs, every single day, the United States military blows shit up. I just don't see this as, we're not fighting a war. We're just, occasionally smoking a camel. I mean, not a camel, but a cigarette boat, and it's fine. And I kind of, when it got a little bit smart ass there at the end, but seriously, I don't see that we're spending a ton of resources to do this. But you're right, we are getting a lot of mileage out of it. There's a lot of pressure on Maduro. There's a lot of pressure on the layers of the onion that Tyler spoke about. That is his inner circle and he literally, the entire government basically of Venezuela is cartel or otherwise involved in illicit activities. Venezuela is such a shithole that they literally have actual slavery, not just sex slavery. I mean actual slavery, and for anyone to be like, why we shouldn't just carpet bomb them into oblivion, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't vote against it.
We're talking to each other on devices made by slave labor in China. Your outrage is situational.
Wow.
Now they get.
I don't follow your logic.
Hold on, Grid. You said two things there, Grid.
Standing over him saying.
Well, hold on, Grid. You said
Completely
you're opposed to intervention, and then you just said you're okay with carpet bombing. So which is it? Like,
I could understand it. Understand.
He likes a little seasoning, a little intervention seasoning.
I don't agree with it, but I'm okay with parking the boat off the shore.
A little seasoning.
Are you familiar with gunboat diplomacy?
Yes.
Yeah, so you do understand that it's not about just parking the boat there just to like occasionally shoot around. Like there's a bigger like objective to all of this.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I
there's a bigger
understand.
goal here, and it's
Yeah.
unrelated, or at least only I would
And
say.
if it's a side effect, if it is in fact a side effect of the gunboat diplomacy that Maduro caves or his lieutenants take his ass out, or there is some change that benefits us, great. If there isn't, we tried.
Okay, so I want to answer
I'm gonna-
Dylan's
go
question
ahead,
as well.
Tyler.
I got Dylan asked a question about the cost benefit analysis of doing this. The reason why we're doing it, like, what is the downside right now for anybody in any of these countries to the south of us that has a politician that takes cartel money? The government's not going to do much to them because they're fucking scared shitless of the cartel who kill politicians and police like 10 times the rate of what happens in like other countries, maybe higher than that. I think they reached like 50, 100 a year at one point. Like they're just politicians dropping left and right. What's to stop these people from taking the money? What deterring factor is there? Should we just ignore it and allow it to happen and just try to catch it on the border at like the as a
Dude, we
reaction?
just pardoned a guy who took money from the cartel.
Yeah, I already addressed that anecdote. I'm talking about the overall empirical strategy.
Well, no, I mean to your point, like to your question, like there's no incentive because there's no consistent threat from the United States for taking money from the cartels. I mean, dude, being a Latin American country is basically based on historical precedent. There's like a reason to be afraid of the United States
We
at all
aren't
times.
talking about
right?
any details
But other
to
than that,
he could have been a friend of
Say
the
again?
cartels that's willing to now work with the Trump administration and give them something because of the
to help Prospera, I understand
Yeah,
that.
so that's a deal. That's somebody working with Trump. Well, like, how would you handle this in
It's
other
a
ways?
deal with
The
a lot
reason-
of things baked into it. Do you think that a guy who was connected to the cartels is going to go back down to Honduras and say, by the way, guys, I can't do that anymore. I got to help Prospera out. Peter Thiel really needs me. You know, like he's going to go right back into the same networks that he was connected to before because that's what his power is predicated on.
He may, and
that's
then he
pretty
gets
much
busted
all over
again.
Latin America.
He may, and he gets
A
busted
lot
again.
of those states are narco states.
Or
It's
we
like-
gain something out of it because he's willing to work with us. But the point of Venezuela and that
But
a
he could
different
still
country.
be working with the cartels,
Hold on,
dude.
hold
so
on,
it's not
hold
actually,
on.
It's not
This is
stopping the
over here.
cartels, which was
I'm
your
trying-
initial assertion.
I'm making a point to what Dylan was talking about, the cost-benefit analysis of Venezuela, not that Trump's inconsistent, which he somewhat is, I'll give you that. Anyways, it's about establishing deterrence. There's a bunch of people that take cartel money in all these countries. We're going into the one that the United States has been trying to get out of office for fucking 20 years, him and his predecessor, the one that everybody on the left and the right in politics agrees is stealing elections, oppressing his people, etc. This is like to show anybody that if you take cartel money, we are not fucking around. This is the same deterrence that Israel established in the Middle East.
But Tyler, that's the part that it falls apart at the end there because that precedent can't be established unless it's established in places other than just Venezuela. Otherwise, the only precedent you're setting is that if you're Venezuela and we don't like your regime, we'll take you out. But if everybody else is dealing with the cartel, it's fine.
It's not because they're Venezuela. It's
think-
already been established that Venezuela is refusing to cooperate in any way. They wouldn't take back their criminals.
Let me-
anything.
happening.
Hold
They
on,
are taking
hold on,
the land.
hold
They're
on.
taking
Let
the
me
land.
let me just jump in here. I want because I think that we can explore this a little further. I'm going to posit a position that I don't think anybody's represented, but I think should be represented because there's new people saying it. I'm one of the people saying it. I say we should just go invade this country, right, and just take it. Regime change. Let's just go all out. Like Grid and Tyler haven't full on said it. I'm like, let's go in there. You know, I think it is. I'm not buying it's for drugs. It's bullshit. It's definitely for the natural resources and the oil and the petrodollar and fuck Russia and fuck this global life. That's why we're doing it. That's what we should be doing. I feel like we should just be honest and say that it's whoop-ass time, and that's why we're going in there. That's what we should do. And I think that nobody here said that, so I'm going to say it now. Like, I think that we would be knocking one more little piece of the pie off that's in this little nasty alliance they have, and that you know that helps our American imperial intentions. And I think it would help places like Ukraine. I think it would help like places like Israel because we're knocking all these things down and we're helping our allies. Why are y'all so hesitant whenever it comes to this?
Dude, it's logistically fraught for a lot of reasons. For one thing,
no, it's not.
Venezuela is very mountainous. So it's not a matter of like you just send the military and their ground troops and it's just you set up a foothold and well that's it and we won, yay. Like there's issues with supplying your troops. Venezuela has combined military strength, like conventional and paramilitary forces, of like 100,000 people. You know, there's renegade groups and factions that will vie for power after the government falls. You know, I already talked about this at the start of the panel. Then it becomes much more, like Dylan was talking about the sunk cost already. Can you imagine the cost of trying to hold shit together in Venezuela after Maduro falls?
Easy. I answered.
Becomes Puerto
I
Rico.
answered. You ready for the solution? We figured it out. They did a good job. Rwanda, we hired them just like the French did. Rwanda cleaned up all their contracts.
No.
They know how to deal with militias. They know how to deal with the people in the mountains. Problem solved. Well,
We already have somebody at Gibbs Froze.
I think we lost Gibbs,
But
but
they already have
it
somebody.
was such a bad point. He
Venezuela-
lost his
Yeah.
connection.
They
The
already-
cartel got him.
They already have somebody they want to put in place as the replacement president.
Dude, Tyler would get his wish. Another Afghanistan if we fucking send troops into Venezuela.
yeah,
Another
so-
20-year struggle with nothing to gain from it.
With nothing to gain.
50
Women
years.
getting education
And it would
and
probably-
living in unimpressed lives. Why do you hate women? Why do you hate women? They were allowed to go to school. You know, I'm
yeah,
all
we can
for
use
it.
PMCs. Do you not like what? You don't agree that we can use PMCs like Rwanda to clean out the narco terrorists? and the
I
gangs?
think it's a lot more complicated than you realize, and I think that's why they haven't. It's the same with Iran that I've always said to you. That's why they don't send the military in. If it was easy, they would just do it. They did it in a bunch of other countries.
Yeah, but we
I
don't
know.
hold anything. The problem is that, now look, I could get on board.
That's the problem
Gibbs,
right there, Grant.
I could get on board with what Gibbs says. If we look,
It says yours
if
now,
we
bitch.
sent
Like,
if we sent the 160th SOAR down there, we sent 5th Group, we sent a bunch of, we sent some guys down there that do serious shit and fuck shit up and took over the country, and we fucking kept it, and it became Puerto Rico the second. No problem.
but we don't do that.
U.S. territory. You can't be a citizen. But we rule everything and we tax your ass.
Okay, can I just make a point, and not to get
If
into
we did that, I
Ukraine?
could get
and,
on
you know,
board.
I've had a million debates about Ukraine, a number with Dylan. Let me just, like, if we purport to care about sovereignty, we can't just do things like that.
That's the problem.
can't.
I don't think that. I mean, okay, I actually agree with you 100%. If we purport to care about sovereignty, I think that
Well, hold
Urbo
on.
is the biggest lie of the last 20th century. Like we see,
You're
Russia doesn't
sovereign
believe in
until
Urbo.
somebody conquers you, and then we're
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's a lie, and I think Russia is
King is
preemptive
dead,
on
long
proving
live the
that
king.
as a lie. Yeah, they've gone in there and invaded Ukraine. They came up with bullshit in it, and I think they, showed that the emperor has no clothes in regards
okay.
to Urbo.
Wait,
Part of
Gibbs,
the
but that doesn't
Russian-
mean sovereignty is a lie. That just means sovereignty, like law and order, is something that has to be maintained. If you don't maintain it, if you don't have a power base, then you don't have it. Venezuela doesn't have it because they're shit at managing their economy. There's been a successful sanctions campaign,
true.
successful pressure campaign, and so therefore, right now, the amount of sovereignty that they'd like to have is a lot less than what they actually have. But that doesn't mean it's dead, Gibbs. It just means you need to maintain it.
Well, it needs to be
I don't know.
rebuilt.
It's also there's also
we need to
something
get
to
under
the
the hood,
idea.
straighten
I know
engine out,
nobody wants
little
to say
pink-
this, but like
scratching your
Russia's whole argument about invading Ukraine and their right to a big part of it, and yeah, it's a propaganda narrative, but nevertheless, is well, the U.S. doesn't respect other people's sovereignty. Look at Iraq, look at Syria, look at Libya, blah blah blah. We can't set that precedent and then expect other great powers not to do the same thing. And we can't set that precedent and not expect other countries to look at America and say, wow, fuck that, I'd rather do business with China, which is pretty much what happened in much of Africa. You know, they can establish developmental relationships with China that, yes, are exploitative, but they don't involve violent coercion or the threat of
Well, that's
violent
because
force.
We won't work with those countries in China. We won't work with Mali. We won't work with Ghana. We won't work with those countries because they literally are nothing but human rights violations. It's an entire
Well, Mali,
country.
and say how all the coup governments post-coup, I agree. It's because the coup governments are aligned with Russia. But you can't tell me all of the places that China is
They're not even
developing
aligned with
economically in
Russia
Africa,
anymore.
we wouldn't
They
want a
just-
stake in. In fact, I'm pretty sure the IMF floated loans to those places.
Well, the IMF does that to control the currency of the world, but that's irrelevant. That's a dumb point to make.
Well,
But
no, it's not a dumb point. The IMF is an extension of like American world hegemony. Everybody
Yes,
knows
that's how
it.
we
It's,
control
it's a
Pepperball,
means for
yeah. We depress
right.
people's
So,
country. Yeah.
but my point is, you would have a stronger American hegemony if that's really what you guys want. If we respect other countries'
Obviously,
sovereignty.
look, what I want is irrelevant because as a country, as a nation, we conquered the world and then we gave it all back. So obviously,
we just
country,
lost
we
it.
don't want
How's that
to
going?
do that. We don't
How's
want
that
to
going?
do that. What do you mean?
We conquered the world for what, like 10 years?
We
So much
conquered
for
the world
that.
and then we gave it all back. We gave
How did we
Japan
conquer the
back
world?
to Japan.
Dude, we conquered the
We gave
world from
Germany
like
back to
1991
Germany.
until 2001. R.I.P. the American Empire. 10 years.
Well, also when we give stuff back, it's not just because we want to give it back. I mean, like making Japan a state would probably be a very difficult process that would come with a lot of resistance. Same thing with the Philippines. Same thing with, a lot of territory. It's part of the reason why many Republicans are uncomfortable with the idea of turning Puerto Rico into a state, even though it has an identifiable landmass, a population. So it's people say, oh, we gave it up like it was a gift, but I mean, after a lot of times
Right.
we used them. We used the Philippines for military purposes.
We don't really
I-
go back. We say, here, now you manage this the way that we want you to. It's sort of a...
There's a few things I
Yeah,
wanted to get
you
into.
would
I
do.
wanted to game this
Go
out
ahead.
a little bit, Gibbs, if you'd let me. Like an
Go ahead. Yeah, go
actual
ahead.
a scenario, because I actually have some agreement with non-smoker here on the idea that if a nation is sovereign, it must be sovereign. Therefore, the United States cannot just say we don't like Maduro. Therefore, goodbye Maduro. That's why I said, is it within America's interest for Maduro to go? Yes. That doesn't necessarily mean that I support going in and removing Maduro. Just that it'd be clearly within our interest
Correct.
if we had access to 740,000 more barrels a day and the largest oil reserves on the planet. It'd be within any country's interest to have access to those oil reserves, especially in an energy pinch. Number one, I don't think it would be like Afghanistan if we were to militarily intervene in Venezuela like Gibbs and Tyler are suggesting. That doesn't mean that it would be fun or that it would be good. It's just that this is the one memory and war memory most Americans have. It's that in Iraq, and I
What do
don't
you think
think
would be
it could
different about it?
necessarily be compared to those countries because number one, like the sects that led to a lot of the interfighting that left America kind of in the dust. Venezuela doesn't exist in that way. There's no Sunni, there's no Shia divide, these type of religious and intertribal.
There's no
Those
Islam,
things don't exist. There are conflicts in Venezuela, conflicts between different gangs, conflicts between different people who are power brokers who want to take over power, but it doesn't have a lot of the same religious connotations or like
true.
cross-border terrorist organizations that
Fair.
would be crossing borders. There'll be gangs, but it's I don't think it will necessarily look like that war. I do think that the biggest danger is we have a Libya-style situation where we go in, we decapitate the leadership, we say yippee, whoever comes in next better not smuggle drugs into the United States, we leave, and then different gangs and power brokers fight over territory and land, where the opposition would maybe take like a third of the country, the military would take the capital, and then you just have a ton of violence and chaos where you're never really able to get the train back on the track. That's the thing that concerns me. So if we took it upon our own moral responsibility to go in there and say, we're going to remove the government of Nicolas Maduro because it serves our interests, we might actually leave the Venezuelan people in a worse place. I don't think Venezuela improves until Maduro goes, but how he leaves, if we go in there and steal their revolution from them, that might end up derailing the train, the track in a way that's going to get a lot
Now
of
you're
people
just
killed.
inviting the CIA to go in and do what the CIA does. Are you in the Ukraine currently, or are you back in the States?
I just got back from Ukraine a few weeks ago.
10:30 it says.
Okay. I was just curious. I didn't know what time zone you were on.
So
I
Not
think
to
the only
be-
scenario where the United States should maybe intervene is a scenario where the government has decided that a large-scale military crackdown in reaction to a large protest killing thousands of people, certain select strikes to stop teams headed out to kill protesters. I could imagine a scenario like that, but the
don't
idea
even
that
think
we
you
need to be the ones to go in there and
If he was-
create
if
One
we-
thing,
Yeah.
we need to
Well, Dylan, if they were gonna
create
do
an
that,
overthrow. I
they
don't
could've-
agree with that.
Well, see, Dylan, if they were gonna do that, this is why I'm much more in the camp of it's obviously not for drugs in my opinion. It's obviously take down the alliance kind of thing in my mind. It's in our best interest. I fully am on board with that. Right? If we were gonna do that, he had already hired Cuban death squads to kill civilians. We have evidence of that. We know that it already happened. If we were gonna invade, I don't know why we didn't invade then. If that was gonna be our reasoning, I don't know. I feel like now it's just more.
Well, then my argument would have been if there was a time to intervene, it would have been when they opened
should have been
fire. not months after the fact, once there's a whole other different conglomeration
Or
of reasons that are motivating
They
it.
stole 2 elections.
Let's go to Grid, then Tyler. Go
right,
ahead,
yeah, I was
Grid.
gonna-
Yeah. Let me.
Okay,
So
Cassell, go ahead.
that's a great point. That you guys have made. The interesting thing about that is when we put the bounty in place and all of that. Currently, I don't believe as an American you can enter Venezuela. Like, if you go there and they find you, first of all, they're not going to let you in the country. If you somehow manage to get in the country, like you cross a border somewhere, you come in through, some way, they're likely to kill you. So really, the only assets that we have left in the country are basically CIA and NSA and DIA and alphabet soup guys. That's it. We don't have anybody. We don't have anyone else in the country right now because they will literally kill you as an American if you're there. So that, I think, kind of plays to your point that you're right. Absolutely, that we could and we should probably just sit back, and we may have missed the opportunity and just let the cards fall where they may and put the pressure on them and let them fold and then pick up the pieces with. I think what you're kind of referencing is the idea of surgical strikes, and then put some people in play, maybe even hire some of our own Cuban death squads to go over there. But it's an interesting dynamic. I think it's really fluid in Venezuela, and they're all psychopaths that are running around running that country right now. They're not like. It's not like dealing with like normal politicians. So I think that we sometimes forget that.
I want to talk about the sovereignty point that both you guys brought up real quick.
Yeah, we're going to Tyler. Go ahead.
All right, so the sovereignty point you guys brought up, bro. Yes, nations should have sovereignty, but sovereignty also comes with a set of rules and policies that you need to follow. And if you're rigging elections, killing your own people, jailing your political adversaries for no crime, you're stealing billions of dollars worth of other companies' money at gunpoint, and then on top of that, you are violating another nation's well-being by having state-sponsored terrorists, narco-terrorists, run illegal immigrants, some of which are violent, and drugs into those countries, and killing politicians in many of those countries, then yes, like eventually you have violated national sovereignty. When you're branching out, when Tren de Agua, who is hosted in Venezuela, who is working in coordination with the Venezuelan government, is going into several other nations and killing politicians, they don't get sovereignty arguments anymore. They're violating other people's sovereignty.
We lost it during Fast and Furious. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think Fast and Furious did all that. All it did was put a bunch of guns that we were supposed to be tracking into circulation so we could see where they were going, and then we lost track of those guns.
I understand what it is, but your argument falls apart unless you're willing to use it both ways right there.
That's not a violation of sovereignty, though. That's just trying to track. That's how we get intel and things like that. The scandal was that we lost the guns, and then
We
they
get
were used
intel
to kill.
on crime by causing crime.
We put in guns into the gun trafficking was already going on. We took tagged guns and inserted them in there so we could follow where they went. Yes, that's investigating crime.
Right.
Yes.
Look, I understand that after you want Maduro gone, but I think that if we were to go in there and just remove him ourselves and put troops on the ground, I don't know if that support holds domestically in the United States. I'm just talking about this in practical terms. Fuck morality. In practical terms, I don't think Americans want 2 to 3 years in the Venezuelan jungle fighting gangs. They're going to be fighting about stuff that none of these soldier boys are going to have any knowledge about. They're going to have to get local translator. They're going to need to build an entire structure for something that Trump, I don't even think, is signed on to. He understands the problem with this. So then what's the other option? You do a strike, you remove the government through decapitation. Okay, but unless we're willing to put troops on the ground, then we have a Libya situation. And then besides people bringing up Libya every time they want to make fun of American interventionism, they'll just bring up Libya and Venezuela as a country that is now torn in half by gang violence and opposition leaders fighting from different capitals of support. And so I'm looking at this, and the safest bet from my position is to sit back and wait for either an inciting incident, i.e. Maduro decides, 2 apartment buildings full of, the opposition, we're just going to burn from the ground, and it starts some protest movement. And, it gets to a point where the regime is going to collapse and they have to use overwhelming violence to stop it. And at that point, we strike them once they start mowing down protests or something. Some inciting incident. instead of us trying to create something, or revanchism, which the government of Venezuela has engaged in since the government of Hugo Chavez and before when it comes to Guyana. And there have been real threats towards the state of Guyana for quite a time now, which is actually on a path to produce more barrels of oil than Venezuela, just due to the efficiency of how they're working with American oil producers, how they're managing their resources much better. And Venezuela, in response to that,
Capitalism.
Ranchism, have talked about interventionism. These are two potential inciting incidents where in Guyana's case, we can get the international community behind us because it would be a situation kind of like Kuwait. And in the other instance, the massacre would be so overwhelming, or this incident would be hopefully, or not hopefully, but if you would want this to succeed, would get such public reaction that the general Venezuelan public, who have probably already signed on to Maduro's leaving, could sign on to it. But outside of those two scenarios, which require more work than just the United States to get something done, I don't think everything else is a sure bet. I think it's actually a really risky endeavor.
They have 20 jets.
Why not?
Let's go.
Oh, sorry. Go Cassell. Yeah, go Cassell. Sorry.
I was just going to bring up because a lot of these scenarios involve either a strike or hoping that the Maduro regime falls in some way. But I think, Tyler mentioned it and Grid mentioned it in some way. They're not going to let Americans in. And also, they just had recent elections where Venezuelans voted for the opposition. They were obviously rigged against the opposition. So in that case, why not just have the international community, the IFES, that basically is for supporting rights to participate in free and fair elections, go in and make a deal with Maduro, say if you conduct a fair election, we'll back away from, bombing the ships in the ocean or whatever. We don't have to strike anybody. We don't have to do anything militarily. And then they can have a free and fair election where the people can decide. I think that's a fair diplomatic way that maybe Rubio is talking about.
I know I'm the moderator and I'm not supposed to answer this, but I'm going to answer it. It's because they're a bunch of bitches. That's why. That's they're a bunch of bitches.
Who enforces that on the ground, though? Is that going to be
the
UN
us.
peacekeepers?
Yeah,
Is that going to be some
It'd have
coalition
to be
of
the
countries?
UN. It'd have to be they wouldn't let the US do it.
Oh yeah, the
It would
UN.
have to
Oh
be-
yeah.
I was just
So
saying it would
yeah,
have
the
to be
UN.
that would be the only way to an international organization.
And do we think that the blue helmets could deal with Venezuela's gangs?
Wait, why would that have to gangs have to do with the election though?
Well,
Because that's
just
who
we
controls
won
the
an election
elections.
doesn't mean that like a free and fair election could take place.
Wait,
If
but
there's-
that's not the.
There's nobody
that,
to
that
control
wouldn't be
the
the
state.
that wouldn't be the deal
If
though.
the government's
say hi?
broken
You
down,
wanna say hi,
you need
Mr.
somebody
Cody?
on the ground to stop the breakdown.
Say hello.
Right,
or-
right,
or,
right.
you know,
Dylan's
yeah.
right. Dylan
I'm
is
saying
absolutely
before-
right. 100%.
No, but Grid, you're acting like it's going to be overrun during the election. I'm saying you have to have an election, and then if there's a fallout, okay.
What are
If,
they gonna
if,
do?
if there's a fallout,
I
then
just-
obviously you're
just
going to have
walk me
people
through
there.
your logic.
It's not going to be part of the deal.
Castle, let me just walk you through your logic. All right, I just tell me where I'm wrong in this logic train that I'm about to give you. Okay, you tell me when. Stop. All right, IMF or whatever. They come in, they make these rules. They're gonna make it a free and fair election. Cool. Coming. And then they decide they're going to bring the UN peacekeepers. That's who's going to back them up against the cartel of the sun and the Venezuelan government when they decide, go fuck yourself, we can't buy them off. And what's going to happen? The UN is going to put their little hats on, and they're going to put their head between their legs, and they're going to roll over and say, fuck me, daddy, like they do every single time, and push comes to shove. Is that not exactly what's going to happen? We're going to be at square one, like that we were right beforehand, except maybe now we've had an international incident?
I mean, if Venezuela wants to start killing people from other countries and start an international war, good luck. Then they're basically screwing themselves even worse. They want to do that.
Or even a step before that, they could just do like Iran did and say, nope, you can't get in here. Like, oh yeah, we're going to make
Okay,
sure
but then the
election's
deal's
good.
off. I mean, I'm saying if they don't want to do that, then the deal's off. But I'm just saying that's the opportunity that they have if they don't want to get bombed or if they don't want to be invaded militarily. I'm not
So then
saying
they just
that
bought
it's the best.
But hold on, so then they just bought like time indefinitely by like doing this.
Yeah, they're buying time.
Get
They're
ready,
buying
like-
time, but I think that's beneficial if for Maduro if he wants to buy more time. But I think that staves
All right,
off any
let's go to Tyler.
military.
I got a
And then-
jet.
Well-
did you want to?
I just got a jet real quick. I got a jet real quick. I'm not going to tell you the reason. Well, I was chalk it up to I'm scared that non-smoker's going to crush my argument, and I'm running from him. Let's go with that. I see you.
That's right.
Hold on. Oh, yeah. Okay. Turn it all off. You can go to bed.